What is up and welcome back. We are your Colorado real estate family, Pete and Chelsea Sweeney. Today what we're going to be doing, we've been talking about Windsor quite a bit, right? So how does it compare to these other cities in regards to the cost of living?
All right, let's go. All right, so when talking about Windsor, I think the two biggest comparables are going to be Fort Collins and Loveland. So today we're gonna spread it out. We're gonna say, when you're looking at these three cities, what does it mean for the cost of living and living in each one? We're gonna use the cost of living index, which Peter explained so well, so I'll just let him take it away from there.
All right, here we go. If you've never watched one of our cost of living videos, what we do is your cost of living, 100 is your national average. If it's above that, obviously it's more expensive. If it's below it, then it's cheaper than your national average. And today we're comparing more so to these other cities on a cost of living index. Is it more expensive or cheaper than Fort Collins and Loveland?
The fact that we're even comparing Windsor to Fort Collins and Loveland is actually blowing my mind. We've been able to cover Windsor in this depth shows how popular it's really becoming. How is that affecting overall cost? If you're looking at the overall, it's going to be Windsor at $119, we've got Fort Collins at $116, and then Loveland at $112, which means that overall, Windsor is actually higher than the two most popular cities in northern Colorado.
Yeah, and so we've constantly mentioned how, like, growing up as kids, Highlands Ranch was where all the cool kids decided to live, right? And so it became a little bit more expensive. Everyone's like, oh, you live in Highlands Ranch. That is what Windsor is now. Everyone's kind of moving up to Windsor to get away from downtown Denver, but it's kind of the new spot where all the cool kids, all the cool cats hang out now.
That's just overall. Stick around to the very end of this video because we are going to go over housing, which is the most important. Let's break into some of the other things such as utilities, transportation, and miscellaneous. So if you're looking at utilities, it's going to be 94 in Windsor, it's going to be 91 in Fort Collins, and then 90, I guess it's 91.3, and then 91.9 over in Loveland. So again, Windsor is more expensive when it comes to utilities. Now, if we're going into transportation, it's going to be 91 over in Windsor, 87 over in Fort Collins, and 94 in Loveland. So those two categories, Fort Collins actually came in cheaper versus Loveland and Windsor, which is insane because Fort Collins always was the more expensive city in comparison to the surrounding cities. But what we're starting to see is people not wanting to be in Fort Collins and then going to the surrounding cities, which is then driving up cost.
I mean, let's take the obvious right here, guys. All three of these cities are cheaper than your national average, so they're still super affordable, still more affordable for the most part as compared to Denver. Well, okay, we haven't broken into real estate yet, but I'm just saying, in these topics that we've already discussed, it is cheaper than Denver, but the fact that it's cheaper than your national average is awesome to kind of see.
When talking about miscellaneous, it's going to be 99 in Windsor, 103 in Fort Collins, and 152 in Loveland. Because these numbers were so different, I had to know more about what this is including, because how in the world is Loveland more expensive than the other two? I really did think that Windsor and Fort Collins were going to be a little bit more bougie than, say, Loveland. We use bestplaces.com, and so I like to look at what scale they use and all the things that are encompassed in this, and because it was so high in Loveland, I had to know every category that they look at. So when looking at miscellaneous, they're including restaurants, meals, clothing, entertainment, personal care items. I think that's it. So that is a lot encompassed into one. What I will say is that Loveland is, especially with downtown, they're starting to get a lot of boutiques. They're starting to get a lot of ma-pa restaurants or one-of-the-kind little small businesses. We are starting to see downtown Loveland blow up. I mean, tall buildings, which I never thought I would see in Loveland. So that's the only thing I can actually attribute to this whole miscellaneous category, but Loveland blew both of them out of the water.
All right, now it's time to kind of break into the real estate. Before doing so, guys, if you are loving this content, can you do us a huge favor? Hit that subscribe button. Maybe give us a thumbs up. Notification bell, that we're notified every single time that we put out brand new content. Also, if you are looking at purchasing real estate here in the state of Colorado, today we're more specifically talking about northern Colorado. Give us a call or text the phone number right below. Right below right there, we are your top relocation experts when moving into the beautiful state of Colorado.
When talking about the housing cost of index, and I give you these numbers, a lot of you are like, Chelsea, what does that mean as far as numbers go? So don't worry, Peter will dive in, but let me give you at least what the cost of index is so you can kind of see how it correlates to the numbers. Cost of living index for Windsor for the housing is going to be 173.8. If you look over in Fort Collins, it's 168.6. And then if you go over to Loveland, it's 148.9. I honestly did not expect to see this. I thought that it would go Fort Collins Collins, Loveland, and then over to Windsor. So for it to go Windsor, Fort Collins, Loveland really shows the shift in northern Colorado.
And we're talking about the cost of living index that obviously incorporates what it takes to purchase a house and then also rent, well, not necessarily a house, but rent in general, right? So to purchase or rent over in these three cities. So let's go and break into that median sales price. This is what we always like to break into to really give the numbers. If I'm going to be buying a house in one of these three cities, what am I going to be paying? What's that median sales price? Let's first cover Windsor. Now, typically when I do break into these median sales prices, I do break into your single family and your attached. I'm just going to do your overall today, just to kind of give you a good comparison of what we're looking at. Also to mention too that there's not too much attached products in either three of these cities. They are starting to get a little bit more of them, but right now let's just say that majority of these numbers are really more your single family than it is your attached product. So if we're looking over at Windsor, you're looking at a median sales price of $573,000, and that's almost up 13% year over year. We're comparing May of 2022 over to May of 2023, which is a big number because if you ever watch any of our other videos, spring of 2022 was insane. So the fact that houses are selling for more now as compared to 2022, that's a big deal. And I'm about to show you just how big of a deal that is when comparing to Fort Collins and Loveland. Let's look at that median sales price over in Fort Collins. You're looking at a median sales price of $560,000. So that is actually less than Windsor. What are we looking at though year over year? It's actually down 2.61%. Now Fort Collins, guys, I think it was livability said in 2020 was like the best place to live in regards to moving all across the United States. The best city was number one. The fact that Windsor is beating it out in regards to those home prices, I don't know if Fort Collins just had like a 1-2 year stint where everyone started moving there. That's when home prices started going up. Windsor, I will say, is a little bit more bougie, a little bit more affluent in regards to the kind of the people that live in and around the city. Now let's compare it over to Loveland. Loveland's median sales price as of May of 2023 is $507,000, and that is actually down 1.63%. Again, these cities, I don't understand these numbers yet. Like I said, Windsor has become super popular. We've been seeing a lot of people who pretty much retire out of the Denver metro moving up to Windsor. That might be a huge driving factor to it, but Loveland and Fort Collins are close to the mountains, so you think that those numbers would be up a little bit higher over in those cities as compared to Windsor, but it's interesting to see that Windsor is up as much as it is. It seems like it's gaining a lot of steam right now. A lot of those housing prices are going up.
Now, I also think that it's going to be affected heavily because when I'm looking into, we've recently done videos on all three of these cities, and in part of that, we do a development section. And when I've been looking at the development from Fort Collins to say Loveland to over here in Windsor, Fort Collins and Loveland, Fort Collins already has some products, some like townhouse stuff because of the college, but not a lot around the outskirts of Fort Collins, whereas Loveland is incorporating this product a lot. So that is something that is going to probably affect Loveland's prices pretty soon because we're going to have a lot more different product as far as townhouses, condos, and row homes in comparison to these other cities. When I'm looking over in Windsor, I'm still seeing kind of that traditional single family home. So that may affect numbers coming up, but we're going to kind of follow along this trend because what's happening in northern Colorado is what we've always kind of thought is when we're helping you guys and you want to be close to Fort Collins, a lot of you aren't choosing to be in Fort Collins, and it's starting to affect these outer cities, and it is showing in numbers, in housing prices, you name it. We are starting to, population, we're starting to see changes in population, and a lot of these areas are starting to change. Luckily, I think this changes for the good, and there's so much space around Windsor to grow, whereas some of these other cities do not have as much space to grow. I do anticipate Windsor going up even more in the near future. If you have been following along our cost of living, you usually know that I cover health and groceries. I will tell you that I didn't just not cover them. They're pretty consistent across all three cities and all below national average or right at national average. So not something that you have to worry about when moving into northern Colorado that you're going to see a significant change in the two of them. We have great health access, healthcare access, especially over in the Loveland Fort Collins area. That's right across from I-25, so still very close to Windsor within proximity since you don't have to go into the two cities. So great access in healthcare and still below national average or right at national average cost. We have now covered 3 different cities, what it's like to live there as far as cost goes, as well as housing. If you have any questions about any of these cities, please feel free to reach out down below in the comments or even call or text us because we do these videos for you.
And of course, guys, if you are looking at purchasing real estate here in the state of Colorado, give us a call or text the phone number right below. Right below, right there. It doesn't matter day or time. We are there to answer. We are your top relocation experts. Until next time, we love you. Bye.
Bye.
Cities in regards to the cost of living.
Oh, wow. That was really good. Can you just put me in?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's go. But let's dive into some of the simpler things, which are going to be your transportation.
Utilities.
Okay. Your exactly, because we look at what do we use?
Best places.com,
yeah.
I think. All right, cool. It's that time to kind of stick into the... Do we already do thumbs up and everything?
No.
Okay.
So, not so. Now those are my two fillers.